Welcome to Conversations About Peace. Today I am very blessed to have a dear friend, Christopher Timms, and I know you're going to love him. He's been teaching eternal teachings, the original way. He has shared this teaching as a lifestyle that promotes the true nature of self, God, reality, and the journey as consciousness, exploring limitless creativity. Oh, I love that. And Christopher has an extensive background in ancient civilizations, ancient languages, secret societies, original mystery school teachings, world religions, nutrition, exercise, martial arts, and yoga. And he's also an expert in the power of sound. And Christopher is clairvoyant. He's highly clairvoyant and clairaudient. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And tomorrow he'll be leading the meditation on our World Miracle Peace Experiment. So I hope that you'll join us there. And you can always join the World Miracle Peace Experiment at worldpeaceexperiment.com. So Christopher, I'm just really thrilled to have another conversation about peace with you. And what I would really like, because of your amazing background, is what did the ancients think about peace?
Well, one of the focus points in the mystery school teachings, there's a whole month's discourse that's dedicated to experiencing true peace in a world full of chaos.
Yes, well, that's what we're after, is we all want to experience peace no matter what's going on around us.
That's right. And from the ancients' perspective, using the ancient languages and their storyline, from the Gnostics, the creative force, the divine feminine, called the Sophia. And of course, Sophia means wisdom.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
beautiful. The word Sophia means wisdom. So Sophia, this divine feminine, dreams of herself and other. And as she dreams, the act of dreaming generates what we call yin and yang in our culture today, right? Duality.
Yes,
and in the ancients, they call it the demiurge.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The demiurge is the lord of the lower realms, matter, energy, space, and time, is both friend and foe, are both the angels and the demons, the good guys, the bad guys, and all of the different polarities here. So to tie this in quickly, what the Gnostics and what Jesus was steeped in during his life, this is the group he was most associated with, not so much the Essenes, but really the Gnostics, was the idea that true peace is to be able to experience both yin and yang, both light and darkness, pain and pleasure, without throwing yourself out of balance in either direction. Without losing your sense of centeredness.
So would you call that being neutral, that you would be more in a neutral state? And you
a neutral state, but yet the Gnostics were talking about just the love of life, just the joy, the passion, the fullness of living. So to be specific, we could say that it's living this way without attachment. So so you're not neutral from a kind of lobotomy kind of a point of view, right? It's not that. It's that you're really involved in life, but yet because you have an insight that it's all an illusion, that it's all part of the dream of the Sophia, that is part of Maya, which is what we will call it more in a contemporary time, that you're not going to get hooked into any of it. You're not going to get hooked into the really great stuff. You're not going to get hooked into the really yucky, undesirable stuff, because either one is what the Buddhists will call an attachment.
Sure.
And the attachments will cause suffering. Suffering brings ignorance. And with ignorance causes the forgetfulness that takes us out of our true peace.
So basically, you're living in the world, but not of it.
That's right. And on an experiential, not a belief or understanding basis, on a experiential basis, moment to moment to moment throughout each day. And that is where peace is derived, is through that realization. It's not, peace is not derived from saying, okay, now I've just got to get my life under control, because then you're just under control. You may
Yeah.
not be peaceful at all.
Well,
You can
yeah.
still, pardon me?
No, I get that. That's
Yeah,
really beautiful because you're not just trying to control something, because that's not really being peaceful. You're not just trying to keep your anger or what other, dramatic emotions under control. You're actually being peaceful on the inside out and manifesting that outward in your world.
no matter what the circumstances are. For instance,
Right.
some of the circumstances going on in my world personally right now, and there's sad things that are going on. I
I
feel
know.
them fully. I'm really present with the experience as my daughter loses her dog of 14 years,
Yeah.
and all of those things. But it doesn't hook me. I'm able to be present with it, which is actually a deeper experience than getting lost in it, and still maintaining a sense of peace and well-being, whether it's a sad event or whether it's something that you really hope for and are joyous about. So I just wanted everybody to know about the narrative of how this does apply and this works in everyday life.
Sure. Well, it does, because we want to be peaceful. If
Yes,
we are reactive to everything that happens, then we're thrown off our peace at every time, at every incident that occurs. So when we have that very strong balance of knowing inside that, this deep calm, this deep well of peace inside, then nothing really throws us. And if it
that's right.
does, we know how to get back.
Right.
So
That's the key. So if it does
yeah,
pull you, which we're all going to get pulled from time to time, that's part of life. That's part of the spice of living. But you're able to draw yourself back and say, got it. Okay. And there's an amazing opportunity we have right now, MarBeth, in that in life, in the outer world, there appears to be so much chaos, so much wild stuff going on at all different levels.
sure.
And whether you like it, whether you don't like it, it doesn't matter. Whether you believe it, whether you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. What matters is that in the theater of our existence, these things are expressing themselves. And to me, everything is metaphor. The world is a metaphor, is a series of ongoing symbols telling us about what's happening within each one of us.
Beautiful. I love that,
Yeah,
Christopher.
it has to be. So where is this chaos really happening in the world? Right in here.
Yeah,
Where is this idea of fake news, real news? What do you believe? What do you don't believe? Right in here.
sure.
Where are we confronting the values of our culture, the priorities of our culture, the direction of our culture, and who is that culture? We are. Right.
It's
So,
beautiful.
boy, so from there, you can look into the world, and if you look through the eyes of the Gnostics, you can go, well, okay, none of that's even really existing, because this is all just a dream telling me about the battleground that I am unto myself, the conflict that I have within myself. And as we learn from the Bhagavad Gita, then the way to resolve this inner conflict within ourselves is not to fight the battle, is not to confront it, not to set all your phasers and photon torpedoes in action here, but just take a step back and say, no, 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 no. I'm not going to do battle with any of these forces. I'm not going to take a side and jump in. I'm not going to become polarized to this, because that's acting with attachment.
Sure. But when
Yeah.
you do act with the non-attachment and you allow yourself to be guided, to act rather than to react in a
Yes.
situation, then you make the wise decisions that are going to create more peace.
And the involvement of all the choices in your life is ratcheted back towards causation, much more towards a higher elevated level of insight than when you're reacting.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, so it's always, where is your involvement on that scale between cause and effect?
That's really beautiful. And I love that you're able to tie in the ancients, the Gnostics. You want to tell our viewers a little more about the Gnostics and about the Bhagavad Gita in
Sure.
case people don't know?
For those of you who don't know, the Bhagavad Gita comes from India, and it's part of a larger text called the Mahabharata, which is a foundational text of pre-Hindu India, several thousand years really before the Gnostics and Jesus, thousands of years really. About the time when Egypt was emerging and Sumeria was emerging in the Middle East, 3800 BC is when these texts were really in full blossom. Okay. And they tell the story, the Gita, the Mahabharata, they tell the story of the human experience through many parables, just like Jesus taught in parables, just like all the great mythos of all the cultures, the Greek mythologies, Roman mythologies, the Nordic mythologies. They all teach you about the human experience through stories. That's what the Bhagavad Gita does. And the Gnostics were in a different time. And during the time of the Gnostics, we were moving into a more literal time. So the Gnostics were actually very Zen, MarBeth. It's very interesting.
Oh, very cool.
They're very Zen, and they were based in the experiences of inner light, inner sound, and inner presence, which they talk about throughout their fundamental writings, which we have today within our world, everyone, as the Nag Hammadi Library. That's called the Gnostic Texts. And they give us a really beautiful idea of the actuality, not the religious story, but the actuality of the life of what Jesus and those around him, the men and women around him, lived at that time. The real relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, all of it, is there within these apocryphal texts. The word apocryphal means hidden or forbidden, because the church banned them many, many centuries ago. So that's just a little bit of an overview. But the reason I bring up the Gnostics is because it's such a beautiful, mystical way of telling a creation story about the divine feminine, the birthing, the birthing of creation, just like Hathor out of the Egyptian mystery schools. And then the expression of duality through what's called the demiurge, this both good and bad. It's like both Luciferic and angelic all at the same time.
Sure.
And where there's yin, there's yang. And peace comes as a state of realizing the illusory nature, or the dream, as the Gnostics would call it, of the Sophia. And to rest in the heart of the Sophia is to realize the dream is a dream. So enjoy the dream, love the dream, have fun in the dream, but don't get hooked and tricked into thinking that the dream is actually real.
Because the reality then would be this beautiful awareness that we are.
That we just are.
Yeah.
Transcendent to any conditions, circumstances, ideas, notions, any of it. That's right.
Really beautiful.
To me, that's just so fun. And when you look at people in the world today, whether they're New Agers or religious people or into personal transformation work, wherever they are, or whether they're just walking in the 3D world doing their jobs, people are really easily hooked. They're really easily hooked. And the hierarchy of needs hooks people, pulls you right out of your peace. Oh, you got to have this kind of investment portfolio. You got to make this kind of money. You got to do this. You got to do that, or you're not going to be okay. Well,
Well, we know that doesn't work.
right. And you see so many people being hooked in those things, and it's just because they don't know a bigger picture. As soon as someone gets a bigger picture, then a peace comes over them. And sure, we all have to deal with our daily bread and deal with the functions of 3D reality. That's why we're here. We're
Of
not here
course.
to avoid it. We're here to embrace it. But we embrace it without getting lost in it.
Yes. And I love that. I think it's really important to remember that even though things appear to be real, their body appears to be solid, and things appear to live and die, that's not really what's happening. It is all a Maya. It's all illusion. It's all a dream. What is real is the beautiful presence of who we are, created in the image of our Creator, that is real,
That's
that
right.
is beautiful. And what we're doing with our World Miracle Peace Experiment is creating this unified field of love and peace and miracles, a unified field of consciousness that unites us, that can create an effect in another part of the world.
Being a student of history, we realize that the Middle East, and this is great that MarBeth has chosen this, everyone, as the focal point for our meditations and our peace ideas, because the Middle East has been at war for over 6,000 years of recorded history. And 6,000 years of recorded history, over and over and over and over again. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now we have two things that are happening. One, we have this event that we're all participating in, and we have the cosmology of the age of Aquarius that's dawning. And as we ratchet through the big precessional cycle, the 26,000 year cycle, we're ratcheting into a time where all those old patterns and structures are not going to exist any longer. So as the structures are already beginning to break down, which you can see by looking into what's happening in the Middle East, as well as different parts of the world, all the old structures are breaking down.
That's very true.
Then as we take that time of catharsis and change, and we sweeten it, it's as though with a meditation like this type of practice that you're bringing out into the world, we're throwing a spice of peace and well-being into this recipe of change that's cooking up. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're creating miracles.
So it's just perfect. So to me, it's the time now to have this happen as a lasting change. And because the timing is different. And as many of you know, I've been a teacher for 30 years. So I was a part of the great experiment, with Greg Braden and Doreen and people years and years ago, where James Twyman, where you did these big world peace meditations, and they would have effects, and I remember Greg was all excited talking about the effects that it was having, and I remember telling him privately, but the timing isn't right in the big cosmology, because it's just going to charge everything up, and then you're going to have a huge explosion of conflict. And don't mean to be an I told you so, but it was accurate. It was accurate. And it's just because of cosmology. And the timing of what you're doing, what you're bringing out right now, is dead on the money. One of my good friends, Christopher Pridham, he's a mystical astrologer. And he said, this is the time when all of that stuff is going away. All the old structures are breaking down, and all the new stuff is able to take form. So if this is a new recipe that's cooking up everybody, everyone, if we're cooking up this new sense of discovery, if we throw some spices of peace and well-being into the recipe, this is the time when it's really going to work, and it'll last. Does that make sense?
That is wonderful. It's really nice to hear that from a different perspective.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, because I'm not an astrologer, but I know that wasn't the right time. back then, and I know that now is the right time. And Christopher Pridham said it is dead on the right time now.
Beautiful. I love it. You know, I can't wait for your meditation tomorrow. I think it's going to be amazing.
Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. I think because of the flavor that we've had talking about the Gnostics, I'd like to take everybody into a primary Gnostic light, sound, presence meditation as far as peace and well-being. How's
I
that?
love that. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Wow, this is wonderful, Christopher. We're really looking forward to it. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on the Gnosticism, the Bhagavad Gita, these ancient cultures, and also about the cosmological shifts that are allowing our experiment to be so successful.
Oh yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah.
When you spoke with me about it, I was thinking about it, and I thought, I just got off the phone with Christopher Pridham, and he and I were just talking about how this is the time when it all comes unglued, and the ungluing is revealing, what's to emerge. So this is perfect.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you're joining us. You're part of it. And I'm really looking forward to your meditation tomorrow. Thank you so much, Christopher. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, MarBeth, for having me.
And have a wonderful day.